Welcome back. Those of you who have been to the our March 1st or our March 6th conference. I'm Margaret Jenkins, and I'm the president of the Ohio Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, which is the Ohio affiliate of the American Association of Family and Consumer Sciences. And we are ready for 2 hours, I believe, of new information. I want to, before I go on, to thank FCCLA for allowing us to have the platform to use for our Zoom meetings. And those of you that see this little hashtag FCS success on some of the screens, that it's a partnership that we're putting together here in Ohio between all of the different organizations that promote or teach family and consumer sciences in Ohio. So, welcome back, and I'm turning it over to Susan Shockey. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Margaret, and certainly good to see everyone today. I am Susan Shockey, and I've been working on the board this past year as Vice President-elect for conferences. And so, again, you'll see me as one of the conference chairs, and hopefully Kimberly is just doing a great job with this. So hopefully I do as well as she has this year with this year's conference. Our first speaker is Sherry Gallup, and she is going to be presenting The Power Within You, Mindfulness Practice Success. Many of you have met Sherry. She presented on Saturday on longevity. I was telling Sherry that she just doesn't look like she's aged a bit, and so there's probably a reason for that. She's a real expert in this area. Sherry is an extension educator for Ohio State University and a certified health wellness coach who has been making a difference in the lives of ordinary people for over 20 years. She has won state and national awards. She served as the past president of the Ohio Nutrition Council and provided leadership in developing a national diabetes education team. Sherry has also studied with experts from the Harvard Research Institute of the Culinary Institute of America and traveled to Italy studying culinary genomics. Her most recent work as a certified health coach has led her on a personal journey into mindfulness education. Sherry is a passionate and mindful speaker who enjoys motivating, educating, and having fun. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you, Susan. You could have just read a few sentences, but thank you for that nice introduction. I think can I share my screen now? Okay. Hopefully you all can see that. Welcome to the world of mindfulness. Hold on, I have one little adjustment to make. There, that's better. Welcome to the world of mindfulness. Again, I am so glad to be here today. I wouldn't rather be any other place. I can't see, hold on a second. Okay. And I am from OSU Extension, as Susan has said, but I'm also a certified health and wellness coach, and that's where my journey began. So I'll be sharing some stories from that today, but I want to ask all of you, this is a little different than some of our traditional family and consumer science courses. So I'm curious about all of you. Have you practiced mindfulness before? If you want to write in the chat, just a yes or no would be wonderful, just to know.
We have a few yeses, yes, but not on a continuous basis, and not really 3-minute exercise each day.
Good. Good to know. Thanks for sharing that, because we know through neuroscience that even a small mindfulness practice, even as little as 1 minute, can make a big difference and reset our brains. So I'm going to talk about the superpower within us for a few minutes. But the stress and the constant anxiety, not only from this year, but our lives in general, lends ourselves to a lot of stress, and especially through the pandemic. I cannot imagine, and there was some of the participants talking a little bit prior, and I can't imagine being a teacher, but also going home or being home and having your own kids to teach as well. So we've had our share of changes and extensions, certainly as any organization, but being a teacher through this crisis is really stressful, as I listen to and talk to some of my peers as well. So the world of mindfulness, I'm still trying to get this. We are going to talk about three things. One, just where to begin, how to begin, and discover a little about mindfulness and how we can practice together. So we'll do a little practice to get today as well. While we as FCS educators often take time and do things for ourselves like healthy eating, it's also very important for us to take care of ourselves in other ways. Something we often forget, no matter what stage or age of life we're in, this piece on mindfulness really is for anyone at any age. So we're starting very simple today with the definition. Based on some of your answers earlier, some of you are practicing, some are not. This may be a new concept, but the definition simply means paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and without any judgment at all. So that's kind of a lot to say, but basically it's the simple practice of just being aware in a moment's time. Instead of going about our days, hurrying from one event to another, we begin to listen to what our minds are saying and our bodies. And let me give you an example. I'll show you an example. So these are some personal pictures that I'll share here. So that's my hand, and those are raspberries. I planted those next to an air conditioner for whatever reason. I guess there was no other space. I had no idea they would grow as well as they did. But I would go to the berries, if not every day, every other day. It didn't take long. It was beautiful to see them grow and thrive. But the best part, of course, was eating those. They never made it in the house, but I stayed in that moment many, many days this summer, and the berries grew until November. So being mindful, you can look at your hand or see, the shape of the berries. They're fuzzy and they have so many pieces and parts, and they look like hearts, and there's so much that you can notice about something as small as a raspberry. So that's one example. Another example is also from my garden. So this is a coneflower or an echinacea, and it was so beautiful. It starts out so small. It does not get this color and this size until July or August, but it starts growing in March, the end of March. You see the roots. And today I was walking a little earlier and saw some of the crocuses were coming up, and noticing things like that really just allows us to just be in the moment. Now, can anyone see something in the picture that's not a flower? Kimberly, can you read the chat?
Yep, it just came through. A B. We got a couple. Oh, we're getting a bunch of them now.
Okay, great. So noticing that bee, like that bee wouldn't leave the flower alone. It didn't care if I was that close. It kept buzzing around and buzzing around. I spent a moment just watching the bee. Who does that, right? So this is what we're talking about. So sometimes we're so busy that we forget to take time and notice the warmth of the sun, the taste of an orange, like the first bite of an orange. And looking at this picture, it's a small seed blowing off a dandelion. Who would sit and watch a seed blow off a dandelion? And who would have the time to do that? But if you're in the moment, you might see that seed blowing off and follow it as it goes through the air. So we go about our life and we don't notice some of these things, or we're not aware, but it's just, mindfulness is just about staying in that moment. It only has to be a moment. If we can practice longer, great, but it only takes a moment. Maintaining the moment by moment awareness of our thoughts, our feelings, our body sensations, the environment around us are all ways we can practice mindfulness. So here's the why. Why practice mindfulness? Why should we stop the chaos in our life and look at a bee or see a seed? Basically, we know through research, clinical studies, evidence-based work, that mindfulness changes our brains and the way our brain works. So there's the why. It's a pretty big why. So here's a scan of 2 brains, and it was an 8-week study of the brain before and after. You can see a difference on the right after meditating than on the left. And I thought about the video that I think it was the social worker that shared last week, and he had a brain and he used his hand. And I've thought a lot this weekend about the stem, the brain stem, and how it comes up. He talked about the fight or flight and the frontal cortex. And so we know that meditation and mindfulness changes the brain. Even 1-minute practices. And that's where I started, with 1-minute practices. Now, this does not mean, and let me break the stereotype, that you need to go outside and sit on a grass mat with your legs crossed, chanting ohms like this. That's not mindfulness, or it's more meditation, but it doesn't mean that we have to get that involved. We simply can sit on our most comfortable chair or on a couch somewhere outside or inside and practice mindfulness for a minute. And when you become more comfortable with 1 minute, you might advance to 5 or even 10. So there are lots of ways to begin. I figured that we might have some here who have practiced and some maybe who have never practiced. So I was at a conference in San Diego years ago, and I went to, there was a sort of a fitness, physical activity in the morning, and I chose to go to a meditation. And I had never practiced meditation before. And the lady teaching it was from Apple. She was the wellness director at Apple. And that was the first time I had heard someone tell me to not worry so much about your breath. Just notice it. Let it go in and out and in and out, and notice it. So there are lots of ways that we can learn to breathe. Online apps, videos, teaching tools, and I can share more with you later. But learning how to breathe is a good way to start mindfulness. The breath is something we can control. and we can use it as a useful tool to help us relax and clear the mind. So I have a few tips for starting. First, just try and relax. And sometimes we don't notice that we're so tense. I'm going to turn my camera downwards a little. So just our shoulders sometimes are up this high. They're up by our ears. We don't notice. So if you just take a few circles a few times throughout the day and notice how tense you might be. So first, just relax. And the second tip is to know without a shadow of a doubt that there's no right or wrong way to breathe. So we're all unique. We each breathe in a different way. It may feel better for you to take really deep breaths in and then exhale. It may calm down. Your breath may calm down. It may be racing, but just know there's no one right or wrong way to breathe. So find your groove. And third, I wanted to share this with you particularly, is it is important to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. And the reason for doing that is that we're stimulating a vagus nerve that's in the nose and runs through the body. This nerve immediately activates a relaxation response, reducing your heart rate, your blood pressure, turns off that fight and flight that we have. So as you breathe, and as we breathe today, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and I will be reminding you. As you breathe and as we go through a practice, you might notice if your breath is fast or slow. Maybe you had some caffeine and notice your heart racing. Maybe it's really deep, maybe it's shallow. So I wanted to also use this sphere to help those who are new. So this is a sphere. It's a great teaching tool as well. And when you breathe, you can use this to show as I am here today. So when you inhale, the sphere goes out. I might have to turn off my camera. And then as you exhale, it goes back in. Let's breathe together for a minute. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time, in through your nose, out through your mouth. So that's a good teaching tool. We'll use it here again in a minute. Now, there are many other mindfulness activities. It takes many forms. There are, of course, meditations and yoga. There's gratitude journals, writing 3 things down each day that you're grateful for. Sorry, I see that typo there. Mindful eating. So I put this picture up to remind us that mindful eating is important. The first bite of your morning breakfast or that meal or even a piece of chocolate. Mindfulness. Where does the chocolate come from? Where was that being grown? We have lessons in extension on mindfulness as well. Mindful workout. Think about what muscle you might be working. And mindful walking. As I said last week, I've been doing some mindful walking as well. So next, let's practice together. So here's how I start the practice, especially if we're virtual, because so many of us can, and myself included, could get busy answering emails, making a menu, thinking about what we're having for dinner. So when I start a mindfulness practice, I invite you to be with me and to put away anything that may be distracting you at this moment. Maybe it is it is something for dinner, or it is an email. And then get comfortable in your chair. And if you want, feel free to turn off your cameras, because we want you to be comfortable in doing this practice. And again, set aside anything that you might be working on. The human mind is meant to process one thing at a time. And so many of the things that we do throughout our day is a multitask, right? So you'll be focusing on the rhythm of your breathing. And if you're focusing on the rhythm of the breathing, you won't be focused on the stressors that are taking your mind to other places. So now that we're fully present, I'd like everyone, if you could, to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe out through your mouth, think about fogging up a mirror. Like I put my hand when I was first learning in front of my face like this, and I would breathe out. And I would visualize fogging up a mirror. So let's try that again. In through your nose. Hold at the top, because when we hold our breath, our mind is still. And out through the mouth. We're stimulating the vagus nerve. So let's take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now on this next breath, and I know most of you are seated, take a deep inhale in through your nose and raise your arms up over your head. I'm going to stand up to do this. In and clasp your hands together at the top. And as your hands are together and you bring them down into the front of your chest, in front of your heart. So that was a big breath in. Hold at the top. And as you exhale, come down to the center of your heart. And it's here where we're going to stay and breathe for a few seconds. What happens when we unite our hands together is that it unites us, but it also unites our brains. So the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere are switched on when our hands are in this yoked position. Simultaneously, at the same time, the hemispheres come together and our brain begins to function as a whole. And we begin to focus and feel calmer. This is one of my favorite practices, which is why I share with you all today as colleagues. Many times a day, my hands are in front of my heart. No one sees or notices, just me. So here I invite you to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And now just breathe on your own. Notice your breath. If it's fast or slow, deep or shallow. Stay in that moment. If you have thoughts about other things like games after this, or commitments, or work, or emails, or dinner, Let them come and go. It's okay. And eventually get back to just noticing your breath. Namaste. Sometimes they ring a bell when we are done with the practice. So you can turn your cameras on and come back into the program if you would like. But that's just one example of a mindfulness practice. I have put together a kit while I'm working on this kit with this practice and many others. So it will be a mindfulness kit, and I'd be glad to share that with all of you. It looks something like this on your screen. Well, there will be an introduction, sort of a background for the educator or the person sharing. It will be for wellness in corporations, it could be for teachers, educators, and the scripts will be written out along with some of the evidence-based work. And then I'll include some activities as well, and maybe even a few videos. Someone has been asking for a few videos. So again, this kit will be available hopefully soon, trying to wrap it up. And if interested, you can mail me or Kimberly and we'll get you the information. I thought since there's teachers, I would talk a little about calming tools for kids. The snow globe or a mind jar is a very powerful visual that can illustrate some of these mindfulness principles for your students. So here's what a mind jar looks like. I have sent Kimberly a link on how to make this. It's super simple. But the glitter jar, or I like it to call it the mindful jar, represents the mind settling. Isn't that wonderful? You know, picture shaking it up and then the glitter just settling down to the bottom. Such a powerful visual for kids and adults alike. And you can say things, something like, let's do some mindful breaths until the glitter settles, or some families call this the calming down jar. So by the time the glitter gets to the end or the bottom, everyone's finished complaining and then everyone can talk. So there's lots of ways that this jar can be used. And we actually don't want to get rid of thoughts and urges and feelings, but we want them out of the way so we can see a little clearer what the issue might be. So this is a great activity and tool. And again, I've sent Kimberly the link that she can send to you all. Breathing ball also is a great visual, and people love to play with these. So these can be found in any toy store. And then there's a fact sheet that's available. So when we started the pandemic, we, of course, were all in chaos. And I really wanted something for people to just pick up and use. They didn't have to click on a link or figure out resources or how to navigate resources. So this fact sheet can be shared. It was shared with like my local police department. And so it can be shared with any audience. And that was the intent of it, that we have the superpower in our back pocket. And the first one, there's two activities. The first one is the simple touch. It gives you specific directions on how to do this because touch releases oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that comes to our rescue. Touching yourself, hugging yourself, an animal, a child, getting a hug. I'm sure you've all read about the 20-second hug. So calming effects. And then the next one in the blue is called Just Breathe. It's called the 5-7-8. And it's another type of breathing that can be done for relaxation. I've also sent that link to Kimberly, so it's available to all of you. And then there's a lot of books. So I put together a little, just a little guide with some pictures for books. Now, this is one of my favorites. Sorry, it's called I Am Peace. And my son is 26 and he's a traveling nurse. And I gave him this book when he left. So these books, some are children, some are more adults, but even if they're children's books, they can be given to an adult. So lots of books available to read. And then one almost final thought. If I could leave one word, especially for those of you that are new to mindfulness and practicing, and that would be just to start practicing. That one word would be practice. We know even 1 minute makes a difference. I started by using an app. Some of you may not use apps, but it's really simple. And the app is called Headspace. I think there is a free trial. And they have little wake-up calls every day. I wake up to those. If you have more time, like I do on the weekends, I do longer mindfulness practices. But it's important that we start to practice. We know that after a few weeks, there's significant difference in how we react, how calm we are, and what choices that we have as well as we're thinking and processing in the moment. So one last question. So this is just a statement. The perfect moment is this one right here, right now.